Thor Love and Thunder sucked! For some reason, Thor is the first character in the MCU to get 4 standalone movies, which is kinda weird, but my stance on his films up to this point is that they're not very good. The first one is just super bland with the most basic setting and uninspired action. I wish we got to see more of Asgard, but it introduces Loki, so I can't be too mad at it. The Dark World is pretty much widely agreed to be one of the worst things the MCU has come out with. It's really clear why. Despite getting more of Asgard, it's just more bland storytelling, as well as some painfully annoying characters. I don't even remember a single thing about the villain. Once again, Loki is the best thing about it. Then there's Ragnarok, the one that many fans consider to actually be really good. But I'm gonna be honest with ya. I did not care for Ragnarok. This just felt too silly to me. It has a heavy reliance on comedy and causes the story to not feel as strong as it should be, despite this being the destruction of Asgard. But because Ragnarok was a big hit with fans, Marvel decided to bring Taika Waititi back to direct the next one, and also write it as well this time, and it really shows. I like Waititi's style for the most part, but it really got on my nerves in Ragnarok, similar to how I love James Gunn's works, but got annoyed by the Peacemaker series. Love and Thunder is pretty much more of the same, except kinda worse. In this one, Thor and his friends have to go rescue a group of kids from a villain who is known for killing gods, but before this journey, Thor reunites with Jane Foster, who is now known as the Mighty Thor. So I guess I will get this out of the way. I actually did not hate Jane in this movie, which is a big step up from her previous appearance since I would argue she was one of the weaker parts of the first 2 movies, as well as her friend Darcy, who does appear in this movie, but she's thankfully only in one scene. We already got enough of her in WandaVision. But Jane actually goes through an arc here that I find quite interesting. She has really grown as a character, and seeing her be more than just Thor's smart love interest is really satisfying. She stepped out of the technical side to be included more in the action side. She really stands out. It's amazing to see her get to fight some baddies. Woman is powerful. Of course, as much as I like the overall idea of her story, the writing and pacing are so awful that it makes it hard to fully be invested in it. I'm not kidding when I say this is the most annoying MCU movie. A lot of the humor didn't work for me in Ragnarok, but it was still easy to see the story present in that film. But I guess Marvel assumed people like Ragnarok specifically because of the humor, because with Love and Thunder, they decided to double down on it. Nearly every few seconds, they decided to throw in a joke and it feels very forced. At least I laughed at a few of the jokes in Ragnarok.
He's mine.
There wasn't a single joke in Love and Thunder that I thought was even remotely funny. I know I complained about the first 2 movies lacking any entertainment, but there should be somewhere in the middle they can reach. It's like when you're taking a shower. If you make the water too cold, you'll freeze. If you make it too hot, you'll burn. So you find a good enough temperature somewhere in between. Just like with the comedy in these movies, jokes are fine, but they shouldn't be at the cost of the story. Guardians of the Galaxy had a perfect balance. It had comedic elements while still giving the powerful emotional moments their time to shine. Volume 2 kind of failed at doing this, for the most part. It still got pretty emotional at the end. If you're gonna make a Marvel film mostly comedy, at least try to make them funny. How bad are these jokes? Well, there were 2 people cussing each other out in the back of the theater after the movie was over, and even though I didn't laugh at that, I still thought it was funnier than anything in the movie I just watched. It really felt like it was trying to be a parody rather than another legit installment in this big franchise. Like, there's a joke where they open an ice cream shop in New Asgard themed to the Infinity Gauntlet, and it proves my point on how much they don't seem to care at this point. Why would they theme an ice cream shop to the thing that was used to commit mass genocide? Oh, also, check out these screaming goats that appear multiple times throughout, because of course they have to capitalize off of a meme that's 9 years old. I'm not kidding, these goats are in it quite a lot, and they do the same joke with them over and over. Oh hey look, Thor's Stormbreaker axe is jealous of his past relationship with Mjolnir, because I guess Stormbreaker's sentient now, which has never once been previously established. Haha, Zeus has orgies in his palace. Imagine being a parent and having to explain to your kid what an orgy is. Some of them get upset over the idea of gay characters, but orgies are A-okay apparently. Remember that moment in the trailer where Thor's clothes get ripped off? Well, the film version doesn't have a censored blur, meaning we get to see his Asgardian ass. As a pathetic form of shock humor. Okay, I've been preparing myself for this moment. I think I'm finally brave enough to do it. It is time for the most epic, ultimate rant regarding this one little moment involving the backside of Hemsworth. Here it goes. Whew, that took a lot out of me. Glad I don't have to do that again. The point is, the humor is awful. Whenever a character has to say something dumb, the actors clearly look like they're struggling to make these lines work. Natalie Portman is not a comedic actor, so it's really awkward when she starts joining in on the gags. On a side note, there's a Melissa McCarthy cameo, and I'm convinced that this was a sneak peek of her upcoming Ursula role in the live-action Little Mermaid. Keep in mind, we have plot elements such as Jane getting cancer, as well as Gore here dealing with his tragic backstory. These are serious events that feel out of place in a comedic setting. I know a lot of people have been praising Christian Bale as Gore, and he is easily the best thing about the movie, but he's not in it enough to be truly compelling. This character is known as the God Butcher, but we don't see him, butcher gods, because we need more time for screaming goats. How hilarious! Similar to Ant-Man and the Wasp and how they dumbed down Scott in order to make Hope seem better, this movie seems to have dumbed down Thor to make Jane seem better. The way he acts just seems out of character for him in some ways. He has his moments, but it's clear they just wanted him to be mostly comic relief. I don't buy the relationship between these two. It comes across as forced. It's a basic will they won't they kind of thing, thankfully not focused on too much, but enough to the point where it becomes frustrating. Valkyrie's in this, she doesn't do much, but yay for representation. Korg is in this, he's still awful, but yay for representation. The Guardians of the Galaxy appear in it only at the beginning, making me wonder why they even bothered with that ending in Endgame. Would have been interesting seeing Thor go on adventures with the Guardians, but that was just too good to be true. I really hope Guardians Volume 3 ends up being great. I was excited to see Russell Crowe as Zeus, but even he was a victim of wasted potential for the sake of unwanted, unfunny nonsense. I can't even say the movie looks good visually. Not a lot of pleasing to look at shots. There's one fight scene that takes place on a gray planet. It's just so boring. The CGI is also pretty bad at times. Usually certain shots look bad in the trailers because they're not fully finished yet, but these shots don't look any better in the finished film. There's some obvious green screen moments, some lighting that doesn't match the scene, and moments that look like they came from a fan-made film. Somehow this had a $200 million budget. This is the first time that CGI in a Marvel film started to bother me. I usually don't have much of a problem with it, but these movies rely on it too much now, and it takes me out of the movie since it doesn't look convincing anymore. The action honestly felt like noise to me, wasn't really into them. There's a scene towards the end that made me think I was watching a completely different film because it actually started to take itself a little more seriously, but by then, it was hard to care about what was happening because there wasn't enough development to make it truly impactful. It just comes out of nowhere. It comes as no surprise that Love and Thunder is yet another bad Thor movie. It lacks any emotional depth due to its overuse of comedic elements. Even the stuff I praised about it are countered by its shortcomings. This is the worst movie of Phase 4 and one of the worst movies in the MCU overall, though Dark World is still worse than this. I think most will agree. I didn't have much to say about this one, but there's really not much of a takeaway from it. If you didn't like Ragnarok, you're definitely not going to like this one. Instead of being Love and Thunder, it was more of loathe and blunder.